Spanish moss-draped squares versus pastel waterfront mansions. Horse-drawn carriage rides versus cobblestone harbor views. Quiet garden strolls versus grand antebellum boulevards. If you're trying to decide where your next southern vacation should be, the Savannah versus Charleston showdown might settle it. Will you choose Savannah, with its laid-back charm, shaded squares, and famous ghost stories? Or Charleston, with its polished coastal elegance, pastel homes, historic harbor, and world-famous food scene? We're putting these two legendary southern cities head-to-head in 6 rounds to find out which one truly delivers the ultimate southern getaway. And by the end, the winner might surprise you. Let the Southern Showdown begin. Let's start with attractions and culture in Savannah. The first place you have to visit when exploring Savannah is Forsyth Park. This 30-acre park anchors the city's historic district and has been a gathering place since the 1840s. The iconic white fountain at its center was installed in 1858 and has become one of the most photographed landmarks in the city. As you walk beneath the oak trees draped with Spanish moss, you'll notice locals jogging, artists painting, and visitors relaxing on the grass. According to the city of Savannah, the park remains one of the most visited public spaces in the historic district, hosting markets and community events year-round. Another stop that you'll almost certainly hear about is the Savannah Historic District, one of the largest preserved historic districts in the United States. It covers more than 2 square miles and contains hundreds of historic buildings dating back to the 18th and 19th centuries. The district is famous for its 22 landscaped squares, which were originally designed in 1733 as part of the city plan by James Oglethorpe, the founder of the colony of Georgia. The cobblestone streets and shaded squares make this district feel like stepping into a living museum, which is exactly why the National Park Service describes the area as one of the country's most significant examples of early urban planning. Then there's the waterfront, specifically River Street, which runs along the Savannah River. This historic stretch was once lined with cotton warehouses during the 19th century when Savannah was a major shipping port. Today, those old brick buildings have been converted into restaurants, shops, and galleries. You'll see massive cargo ships still passing by because the Georgia Ports Authority notes that the nearby port of Savannah is now one of the busiest container ports in the United States. It's the kind of place where you can grab seafood, watch the river traffic, and really feel the city's maritime history. That mix of deep history, artistic energy, and relaxed southern hospitality is really the heart of Savannah's culture, and it's a big part of why travelers keep coming back. So what does Charleston have to offer when it comes to attractions and culture? If you start exploring Charleston, one of the first places most visitors head is the historic waterfront known as the Battery. This scenic promenade sits where the Ashley and Cooper rivers meet to form Charleston Harbor, and it has been an important defensive point for the city since the colonial era. Today, it's famous for its row of grand antebellum homes along East Battery Street and its views over Charleston Harbor. Visitors often stroll along the seawall or relax in nearby White Point Garden, where historic cannons and Civil War monuments reflect the city's long military history documented by the National Park Service. Another place that really tells Charleston's story is Fort Sumter, part of Fort Sumter and Fort Moultrie National Historical Park, sitting on an island in Charleston Harbor. This is the site where the Battle of Fort Sumter began in April 1861, marking the beginning of the American Civil War. Today, you reach the fort by ferry, and once you arrive, you can walk through the brick fortifications and learn how this single location became the flashpoint for a conflict that changed American history. But if you're not a big fan of military history, then there's Rainbow Row, which might be the most photographed street in the city. This stretch of 13 brightly colored Georgian-style houses along East Bay Street dates back to the 18th century. According to preservation groups like the Historic Charleston Foundation, these homes were restored and painted in pastel colors during the 1930s and 1940s as part of an early historic preservation effort. Walking here feels like stepping into a postcard, and it's one of the places that really shows off Charleston's architectural character. In Charleston, history, food, and coastal southern life blend together. The city has long been recognized for its preserved architecture, its role in early American history, and its strong culinary reputation built on low-country cuisine, which combines local seafood, rice traditions, and Southern cooking. Tourism and cultural organizations often describe Charleston as one of the best preserved historic cities in the United States. So if that's your cup of tea, then Charleston is for you. Since both cities are rich in history and blend architecture with nature, they both get the point here. But let's see if that'll be the case when it comes to getting around. So, how easy is it to get around Savannah? When you arrive in Savannah, one of the first things you'll notice is how easy the historic center is to explore on foot. The downtown area, especially the Savannah Historic District, was designed with walkability in mind. And today, it's still known for how simple it is to move between squares, parks, restaurants, and museums just by walking. In fact, the city itself notes that downtown Savannah is particularly friendly to pedestrians, with many attractions located within a short distance of each other. And if you're staying in the historic district, you might not need a car at all. The main reason is the city's free downtown transit network called the DOT shuttle system. These buses circulate through the historic center every few minutes, stopping at major landmarks, visitor centers, and parking areas. The system operates at no cost and connects visitors to other services like the Savannah Bells Ferry across the river, making it a simple way to move around without worrying about parking. For travel beyond the historic core, Savannah also has a public bus network run by Chatham Area Transit, or CAT, which operates routes across the city and the wider county. A standard one-way trip costs about $1.50, making it one of the more affordable ways to reach neighborhoods outside the main tourist areas. If you want a day pass, that'll only cost you $3. That said, there are situations where renting a car makes sense. If you want to explore places outside the city, like the beaches of Tybee Island, which sits about a half-hour drive away, you'll likely want your own vehicle or a rideshare. Parking does exist in the historic district, but many travelers choose to leave the car at their hotel and rely on walking or the free shuttle once they're downtown. So when it comes to getting around, Savannah is surprisingly easy. If your trip focuses on the historic district, it's one of those rare American destinations where you can comfortably explore most of the highlights on foot. There are free shuttles, buses, and ample parking. Let's see if Charleston can beat that. And yes, just like Savannah, Charleston is very walkable. Most of the major sites, like Rainbow Row, the Battery, and the Charleston City Market, sit within the downtown historic district. According to the Charleston Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, many visitors explore the peninsula simply by walking because the historic streets, restaurants, museums, and waterfront parks are located fairly close together. That said, Charleston does offer public transportation if you need it. The city's main bus network is operated by Charleston Area Regional Transportation Authority, often called CARTA. Their buses run throughout the region, connecting the historic peninsula with surrounding suburbs and nearby communities. Although a single trip fare costs slightly more than in Savannah, it typically starts around $2. A one-day pass will run you $7. CARTA also operates 3 lines on the completely free Downtown Area Shuttle, or DASH, which circulates around the historic district and stops near many of the city's most visited landmarks. For visitors staying downtown, this shuttle can make getting around surprisingly easy without needing to drive. Just like in Savannah, a car becomes useful in Charleston when you want to explore outside the historic peninsula. So if you want to visit Folly Beach or Isle of Palms, they sit about 20 to 30 minutes away by car. Even though Savannah set the bar so high for walkability and general getting around, Charleston matched it. They have buses, shuttles, and a walkable downtown area. That being said, we are going to give the point to Savannah here. Why? Only because their bus fare is cheaper and they have slightly better connectivity. So let's see how Savannah does when it comes to food. If you want to understand the food scene in Savannah, a good place to start is the Old Pink House. Set inside an 18th century mansion in the historic district, this restaurant is known for classic Southern cooking. The menu leans into regional staples like shrimp and grits, fried green tomatoes, and slow-braised meats, reflecting the lowcountry and coastal Georgia traditions that food historians often associate with Savannah's culinary identity. Another well-known stop is Mrs. Wilkes' Dining Room, which has been serving traditional Southern comfort food since 1943. The experience is almost as famous as the food, because guests sit at large shared tables while servers bring out platters of dishes like fried chicken, black-eyed peas, cornbread, and collard greens. For something a little more modern, there's The Gray, which sits inside a restored 1938 Greyhound bus terminal. The restaurant is led by Mashama Bailey, a chef who has received national recognition for her cooking. The menu blends Southern ingredients with global influences, often reinterpreting traditional dishes using seasonal seafood, vegetables, and heritage meats. If seafood is what you're after, many visitors end up at Vic's on the River, which overlooks the Savannah River. The restaurant focuses on coastal Southern cuisine, so you'll typically find dishes built around shrimp, crab, and fresh fish. Then there's Leopold's Ice Cream, which isn't a restaurant in the traditional sense, but is still a must-visit must-visit food stop. Founded in 1919, this historic ice cream parlor is famous for classic flavors like Tutti Frutti and Butter Pecan. According to local historians and tourism records, it's one of Savannah's longest-running food institutions and a favorite dessert stop for both visitors and locals. Now it's up to Charleston to even the score. If you're the kind of traveler who plans a trip around food, Charleston has built a serious reputation for its culinary scene, especially when it comes to low-country cooking. One place almost every visitor hears about is Husk. The restaurant focuses heavily on southern ingredients sourced from the region, and its philosophy is simple. If it doesn't come from the South, it doesn't belong in the kitchen. The menu changes frequently depending on what local farmers and fishermen provide, but dishes often highlight heirloom grains, regional vegetables, and seafood common to the Carolina coast. Another iconic stop is FIG, which stands for Food is Good. This restaurant helped push Charleston into the national food spotlight by focusing on seasonal Southern cuisine. The kitchen regularly highlights ingredients like fresh fish, Carolina rice, and local produce, reflecting the farm-to-table approach that helped define the city's modern restaurant scene. If you want something that feels deeply rooted in Charleston's culinary traditions, there's Magnolia's. Opened in 1990, it became known for introducing upscale low-country cuisine to a broader audience. Visitors come here for dishes like shrimp and grits, crab cakes, and other classic coastal Southern recipes built around seafood and regional ingredients. Seafood lovers often gravitate toward the Ordinary, which sits inside a restored historic bank building. The restaurant focuses on oysters, shellfish, and fresh Atlantic seafood, served in a style inspired by traditional oyster halls. Given Charleston's long relationship with the Atlantic fishing industry, that kind of seafood-focused dining feels very much at home here. And if you want a truly historic dining experience, many travelers visit Poogan's Porch, located inside a Victorian house built in the late 19th century. The restaurant is known for traditional Southern comfort food like fried chicken, biscuits, and pimento cheese. It's the kind of place where the atmosphere feels just as Southern as the food on the plate. It was tough, but Charleston pulled through. Prized on upscale dining and Southern ingredients, Charleston takes the point for better food options. But there are still 3 categories left. Now let's talk about the places you can stay in Savannah. When you're choosing where to stay in Savannah, the experience can vary a lot depending on your budget. But that's actually part of the charm of this city. Savannah is famous for its historic inns, boutique hotels, and classic Southern hospitality. So your accommodation often feels like part of the sightseeing. If you want a place with serious history, many travelers end up at the Marshall House. This hotel dates back to 1851 and is widely considered the oldest continuously operating hotel in the city. During the Civil War, it even served as a hospital for Union soldiers, before eventually returning to its role as a hotel. Today, guests stay in restored historic rooms just steps from Broughton Street and many of Savannah's main attractions. For something a bit more upscale and modern, while still staying inside the historic district, there's the DeSoto. The hotel sits near Madison Square and carries a legacy that goes back to the original DeSoto Hotel, built in 1890. The current building opened in 1968 and is part of the Historic Hotels of America program, which recognizes historically significant hotels across the United States. If you're looking for something that feels a little more classic big city hotel, Hyatt Regency Savannah sits right along the riverfront. From here, you're steps away from River Street and many of Savannah's waterfront restaurants and shops, which makes it especially convenient if you want to walk straight from your hotel into the historic district. And if you're trying to keep the trip a little more budget-friendly while still staying close to the action, DoubleTree by Hilton Hotel Savannah Historic District is another popular option. It's located near City Market and just a short walk from River Street, putting many of the city's major attractions within easy reach for visitors exploring downtown. Now let's take a look at where to stay in Charleston. When it comes to places to stay in Charleston, the city has a huge range of accommodations, from historic boutique inns to larger waterfront resorts, and where you stay can really shape the entire experience of your trip. If you want a classic luxury stay right in the historic district, many travelers look at the French Quarter Inn. This boutique hotel sits in Charleston's historic French Quarter neighborhood, just steps from the city's markets, galleries, and restaurants. The property opened in 2002 and has become known for its elegant rooms and central location, making it easy to explore the historic district on foot. For something that blends history with modern design, there's the Dewberry. The hotel occupies a mid-century modern building originally constructed in the 1960s as a federal office building before it was transformed into a hotel. Today, it's part of the the Historic Hotels of America program and sits directly across from Marion Square in the heart of the city. Another major option is the Charleston Place, one of the largest hotels in the city. It opened in 1986 with more than 400 rooms and was designed to fit the architectural style of the surrounding historic district. Because it sits right near King Street, many visitors choose it for easy access to Charleston's shopping, dining, and historic attractions. And if you want something closer to the water with resort-style amenities, Charleston Harbor Resort and Marina offers a completely different experience across the harbor in Mount Pleasant. From here, you get sweeping views of the harbor and easy access to boating and waterfront activities, which adds a coastal resort feel to a Charleston trip. Bear in mind that Charleston tends to be the better destination for couples. The city leans heavily into romantic boutique hotels, historic mansions, and elegant waterfront. Add in candlelit restaurants, carriage rides through the historic streets, and sunset views over the harbor, and it naturally attracts travelers looking for a more romantic getaway rather than a purely family-focused vacation. But Savannah is just as strong when it comes to accommodation, so they both get a point. Now let's compare the weather in Savannah and Charleston. If you're planning a trip to either Savannah or Charleston, the weather can play the deciding role. Both cities sit in the southeast and have a humid subtropical climate, which means hot, sticky summers and mild winters. Summers can get intense, with average highs climbing into the upper 80s to mid-90s Fahrenheit. Plus the humidity that makes walking the historic streets a bit of a workout. That's why most travelers avoid July and August unless you're planning to spend a lot of time in air-conditioned restaurants or waterfront attractions. The best time to visit both cities is generally from late March through May, or then again in October and November. Spring brings blooming azaleas in Savannah and vibrant gardens in Charleston, and the temperatures sit in a comfortable 70s to low 80s. Fall is another ideal window. In addition to milder temperatures, you'll find fewer crowds than in the peak spring season. In Charleston, this is the perfect time to enjoy boat tours or explore nearby beaches like Folly Beach without the summer traffic, while Savannah's outdoor festivals and historic home tours tend to be more relaxed, letting you soak in the atmosphere at your own pace. And since both cities share a relatively similar weather, they both get a point. That leaves budget to cast the deciding vote. So which city is easier on your wallet? When it comes to budgeting for a trip, Savannah and Charleston are similar, but not identical. Accommodation is often the biggest factor. Savannah has plenty of historic inns, boutique hotels, and even budget-friendly guest houses scattered throughout the historic district. According to the Savannah Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, mid-range hotels in Savannah often run about 15 to 20% less than similar ones in Charleston. Dining in both cities can vary widely, from casual Southern comfort food to high-end fine dining. But Charleston tends to lean more upscale overall. Restaurants like Husk or Fig have made Charleston a culinary destination, and that comes with a price tag. Entrees regularly start in the $30 to $40 range, and tasting menus can be much higher. In contrast, Savannah offers strong food options at a range of price points, from casual cafes to quality Southern seafood, often at a lower cost than Charleston's most famous spots. Then there's transportation. While both cities are walkable in the historic districts, Charleston's attractions and beaches are slightly more spread out. If you plan to rent a car or use ride shares, that adds up faster than Savannah, where most of the sites are concentrated and accessible via walking or the free DOT shuttle. Taking all of that into account, Savannah is the more budget-friendly option. From lodging to dining to day-to-day expenses, travelers will generally spend less here without sacrificing the charm, history, or Southern experience. Charleston, while absolutely beautiful and culturally rich, comes with a higher price tag and feels like a slightly more upscale destination overall. If keeping costs manageable is a priority, Savannah clearly wins this round. It's time for the best part of the entire video, the tally. Both Savannah and Charleston get a point for attractions and monuments because they're steeped in history. When it comes to getting around, Savannah had the cheaper bus fare, so it got the point there. Fortunately, with its upscale dining options and fresh local ingredients, Charleston evened the score to 2-2. Then, in terms of stays, they both get a point because of their wide range of options, from historical hotels to luxury stays, and all within walking distance of the downtown area. The same applied to weather. With the score tied, Savannah took the final point in the budget category and won the showdown 5-4. While Savannah is more budget-friendly and often a better choice for families, Charleston shines as a more upscale destination and a great pick for a romantic getaway. So which city would you choose? Savannah or Charleston? Let us know in the comments.